Hello and welcome to the NTI PodTalk. My name is Dianne Kaler and I'm Director of Nutrition Therapy Institute. Join me as I talk to interesting people in the field of health and wellness, food and farming, and anywhere else we find conversations that matter to our community. By listening, you'll learn a little about NTI and a lot about the things and people around you that make a difference for your wellness. Welcome and let's get started. Hello there, this is
Hello.
Dianne Kaler, Director of Nutrition Therapy Institute, back for another edition of the NTI PodTalk. Today, we're getting back to our roots and we're going to talk to a student of NTI, coming back to really focusing on our very tight-knit NTI community. So we're talking to a student today, and the student is Gabija Mazunaite. And Gabija is currently quite a ways through our program, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But she has an interesting story to tell, and that's why we wanted to have her on the show. So, Gabija, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so
Yeah,
excited to speak with you.
absolutely.
Yes.
Good. Well, so let's start off, first of all, your background. So what made you interested in health, wellness, nutrition, and what made you want to seek out a school to get some sort of official training?
Yeah, I was end of my high school career, I was sort of starting to struggle a bit. I was class of 2020, so that's when COVID hit and just everything went downhill. Like just struggling overall with like unsureness, and with that stress came a lot of health just issues, I'd say. Not straight up issues, but the symptoms that I feel like I was too young to be experiencing, which I think
Okay.
is more and more common now. And so I got really into just fitness because we had all the time in the world. I got really into fitness. I got really into doing my own research on just eating healthier, having healthier habits to sort of keep myself occupied during a time where it was where I had where I had not much else to do. And then I went to my community college to get my associates in order to I was planning on transferring into dietetics program. And then upon further research, I started to sort of see a little bit of conflict of interest with who funds the Dietetics Academy, and uh, just companies that I don't really agree with anymore because I think their system is just a bit outdated, especially from what I've from my own personal research. There was a little bit of a mismatch in what I personally felt was making me healthier and feel better, and then what was being taught in the dietetics classes and the few nutrition courses that I took at my community college. So I think I was just a bit unsure of where to go at that moment. So I started doing some research for more integrative nutrition schools, more holistic based schools, and I came across NTI, and
Mhm.
something sparked my interest. Because I went through a lot, and I love how science-based NTI is, just not just you really go into depth here, and I think I really appreciate that because everything is very evidence-backed. And yeah, I think that's really important too, because I think holistic nutrition gets a lot of a bad rep of being woo-woo, or just like, without
Yeah.
any real science to back it up. But NTI, ooh, it goes into depth, and I really
Mhm.
appreciate that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Great. That's a great story. I love that story. So I just want to talk about that a little bit more. First of all, um, I think it's great, and I applaud you for having this interest so early, so young in life, because um, granted, it may have been prompted by a situation that was a unique, uncommon situation, but I think so many people your age, young people, um, they recognize, and maybe you find this in your friend group, I don't know, we can talk about that, but they recognize that there's something going on. They may not be able to actually identify, that it's some sort of a energy problem or a health problem or, whatever, but they recognize that there's something going on that makes them feel not quite right. Um, but they don't get to the point where they make the jump that, oh, maybe what I'm eating has something to do with the way I feel. And so for you to make that observation, again, I applaud you for that, because it's not just young people who have a hard time making that observation. It's people of all ages who have a hard time making that observation. And part of that is because it is not encouraged or supported or reinforced in any way by our mainstream information that we're inundated with. Nobody is saying, what you eat really matters and it has a direct impact on how you feel. Nobody talks about that. So do you have like any stories or any comments about that, about your friend group or anything like that?
Yeah.
How was it unique that you were able to make this connection?
I think it was I owe it definitely to how I was raised. My mom basically grew us up with homemade cooking, always just sourcing the best ingredients. I wouldn't say that we knew everything. But my parents are immigrants, so they come from a country that prioritizes real foods and growing your
Yeah.
own foods. And I mean, my great grandmother's still alive, so she's been around that, and I think definitely it's harder when you're not around that. I appreciate that. I'm very grateful for that because I know there's so many different sources out there saying, oh, this is healthy or this is healthy, but I think it comes
Mhm.
down to just um real food. And
Mhm.
I've been around that, so I definitely think it was that. I also think I it's my sort of I can't I know how it feels to feel good, so I also know how it feels when I don't feel good. And I
Mhm.
think I pick up on that quite easily. And when I wasn't feeling good, just sort of digestive upset, brain fog, anxiety, stress, obviously, I pick up on that fast and I don't like it and I don't want to sit there and deal with it. And I think that's
Mhm.
just a big motive for me to want to change things. And
Mhm.
unless I like get back to a state of homeostasis, but a state
Yes.
of where I feel good, um, I don't stop. So maybe it's just my stubbornness, I think. Um,
But yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it's great. It's great. Certainly, as I said, kudos to you for that. The other thing that I want to just sort of touch on and acknowledge, is that you began, started down the route of doing a very conventional mainstream training in a dietetics program.
Mhm.
And um, once again, I applaud you for recognizing that there is a difference in the type of education and the type of sort of eating, a food environment that is supported in different types of training. And you said that in the dietetics program, they are supported, and there is no secret. There is evidence out there that they are supported. They are funded by these big food industries that are maybe not dictating, but certainly in the dietetics program, they're not going to say anything bad about the people that are funding them, right?
Exactly.
Or the type of foods that they're producing. So, you know, you were able to recognize that it wasn't in alignment with what you knew to be true about health and wellness, probably coming from your background of recognizing the value of whole foods. And uh, we're able to say, wait a minute, there's got to be something different. And, and that's great, because so many people don't know to look for something different when they are headed on this path. It's like, oh, this doesn't really fit with what I believe to be true, but oh, well, I guess I'll do it. They don't even think, they don't take the initiative to think, well, there's got to be something different. So once again, kudos to you for recognizing that and then looking for it and finding us and coming here to our school. So All of that was to say, congratulations.
I'm very happy
Um,
to
yeah,
you.
that's great. Okay, um, so you're here, come to NTI, you come here, you're here as a student. And my understanding is that you came in practicing and kind of in the mindset of a particular way of eating. And once you got into school and started learning all the science-based education that we provide, you made we'll say a drastic change, a dramatic change. So do you want to talk about that journey that you took as you started coming to school?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so yes, a bit ago I was vegan for around, I'd say 2.5 years strictly vegan. And this was from, I think, high school to a little bit now at NTI. Um and I truly, of course, I think with how you view your diet, it's very important because obviously you're not going to stick to a diet if you think it's dreadful. And I really enjoyed being vegan. I thought I was, and this is no way to shame any sort of diets. If it works
No,
for you, it works for
certainly.
you.
Yes, absolutely.
Um,
Thank you for saying that because I
yes.
should have said that up front. But
Yeah.
yes, okay, continue.
For me, I loved plant foods. I thought it was great that we were not choosing animal meats and that we were saving the animals, which of course is I think a big reason for people to go vegan, also
Mhm.
the environmental impact of um animal slaughter. But um throughout my journey here, I learned what I think I already knew, but it was more put into my face, and that it is a little bit more difficult on the digestion, just nutrient absorption in general. And I was having a lot of gut issues. I think those were my biggest issues. So when I was going through NTI, it was pretty obvious to see that I think my gut issues were not only coming from how many plant foods I was eating, just like how harsh lentils, beans, just raw vegetables can be on the gut, but also just because my gut wasn't supported, the absorption wasn't happening to begin with, and it was just like um not too great overall. And I also had started my fitness journey, and got really into weightlifting. And I mean, it's a no-brainer that obviously protein is way more difficult to obtain on a vegan diet than on a diet that has meat as well. And so I I like to guinea pig on myself, so I thought, okay, how about we just start to include a little bit of plant or animal-based foods, eggs, fish, and I did, and it went fine. I started slowly, and then about 2 summers ago, I just started eating meat out of nowhere. I will say it's not a good idea to just start eating meat after being on a vegan diet. It can cause some upset. But after that, my symptoms sort of started to ebb away. I was also obviously using some gut supportive supplements, so it's not just the switch that made a big difference, but I think um, just symptoms like cold hands, cold feet, always feeling a little like tired, or always being hungry. That is one thing I will never forget. I just always thought about, I always thought about like, oh, what can I snack on? What can I eat? And maybe, of course, that may be just how I ate, and it's not every vegan that experiences this, but I always felt a little hungry. And I think for a growing person, especially who weightlifts, that's just not, it just doesn't feel optimal, doesn't feel sustainable. And so I started to incorporate more and more meat, obviously for just protein, but also zinc, iron, all that great stuff, calcium, dairy products, eggs, superfood. And little by little, I was like, and this was a bit of a difficult process because my mother is mostly plant-based. So we had a little bit of an argument there, and I was like, okay, but I respect your decision, but I'm going to I'm going to experiment on myself and see how I feel, just because I feel like I am missing something from my diet, and I think I made the right decision, and I feel really good. And I think which puts me back to the reason why I began a vegan diet was because I felt like it felt heavy and just like unwell, but I think that was more of a stomach acid issue, just instead of just unable, if you're unable to digest meat, it's not because the meat is bad itself, it's because you have a digestive problem. And I think vegan diets sometimes can exacerbate that because it's you're not really fixing the problem, you're just taking away the complex protein. So
Mhm.
yeah, I feel like I've been just looking for a while and I'm losing where I'm at. So
No, that's good. That's
yeah.
good. So, that in some way, I'll just add to this, in some way, slightly mirrors my experience. So I also, at a young age, actually, I was a little bit older than you,
Mhm.
but at a young age, decided to exclude animal foods from my diet and had been on a mostly vegan diet for about 10 years.
I remember hearing
And
about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And um, I didn't really recognize the health complications that I was having due to my nutrient deficiency. And, I'll talk about that here in a moment. Um, but once my son was born and I started to recognize compromises in his health due
Mm.
to my lack of nutrients while pregnant, and then his lack of nutrients through breast milk, and then also once he started eating foods, that's what awoke me. And so my first entry into education about health was I went to herb school, and in herb school is where I started to learn about the nutrients that were missing in my diet. And it actually wasn't in herb school. It was during that time that I was in herb school
Mm.
that I started to recognize the nutrients that were missing in my diet because I was not consuming any animal foods, and it suddenly all clicked. Like,
Hmm. Yeah.
wow, that's important to know. And I didn't know that. And I think it's so common back when I was doing this, and even now, while you were doing this, it is a diet that excludes animal foods is so heavily reinforced by the media and by quote unquote health experts. Um, and if someone wants to exclude animal foods from their diet, that's great. We have the luxury in our modern society to be able to exclude animal foods and, not go hungry. I mean, even though, you said you were hungry all the time, but, we don't go hungry in
Yes.
that we are starving because we don't live in a third world country, right? So we have lots of opportunities of all kinds of, um, I'll call them fake meat products and, all kinds of stuff that are plant-based. But what no one ever tells you is that there are nutrients that are inevitably going to be missing if you are avoiding animal foods, because there are certain nutrients that are, number one, either only available in animal foods or are only reliably bioavailable from animal foods, because there are all kinds of blockers, so to speak, and inhibitors in plant foods that prevent us from being absorbing those. And so if someone is going to do a diet that excludes animal foods, they then absolutely must supplement with those nutrients, and they have to put a lot of intention into their all plant-based diet. And I certainly wasn't doing that when I was a vegan. And were you?
Not as much as I should have, no.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I just think that nutrient deficiency will catch up to you one way or another, right?
Yeah.
So, you talked about the fact that you recognized that you were missing zinc and iron and calcium, and another one that is so obviously missing from a plant-based diet is vitamin B12. And
Yeah.
vitamin B12, as we know, affects your cognitive health and your ability to think. So, as you said, you pointed out, there is no sort of, talking down or any sort of discrimination or whatever against
Mhm.
someone consuming a vegan diet, but they just need to be so much better educated than I think certainly I was when I was practicing a vegan diet. And I read all kinds of stuff. I read
Mhm.
so many magazines and books, and everything was, as I said, reinforcing this vegan lifestyle. But never did they really strongly emphasize you need to be supplementing these things if you're not going to be consuming these animal foods. And
Mhm.
did you experience that as well, where you got no sort of like someone sitting you down and saying, all right, this is your choice, but you must supplement these things?
I did not get that. I think when someone's making the switch to a vegan diet, a lot of the emphasis is put on protein. Oh, are you going to be able to get protein on a vegan diet? And we see like vegan bodybuilders, and yeah, there's a big emphasis on protein. And while that's very important, I think the micronutrients are just as important. And I did supplement with B12 on a vegan diet, but everything else, it made it seem like you were able to get the adequate amounts of micronutrients that you needed from plant foods. And of course they exist in plants, just not in the way that can be as readily absorbed. So I
Mm-hmm.
think there's a big misconception there. And I think and of course, and just to make I feel like I would have to be sitting in the kitchen every day, just all day, to make my meals as just well-rounded on a vegan diet. It's a lot
Mm-hmm.
harder to make sure that all the nutrients that you need are there,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
especially if we're a student, who just running around.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and you do have to eat more food. I
Yeah,
mean,
you do.
you do have to eat more food.
Yeah.
You can eat very small portions of animal foods and get a lot of nutrients. And to
Yeah.
be able to get that equivalent amount out of plant foods, you need to eat a lot more plant
Yeah.
foods.
And it's carb
So,
heavy too.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing, and I'd like to get your input on this and your experience with this, is that, like you said, kind of the animal welfare issues were a big, um, for me, were a big promoter of why
Mhm.
I chose a diet that was, uh, exempting animal foods, because I thought I was doing something that would protect animals. And, you come to realize that that's probably not actually true. But the other thing that no one ever talks about is this middle ground that, yes, conventionally raised animals are poorly treated and they're unhealthy, and we should not be supporting that type of system in raising animals. It should not be something that exists, and I would like it all to go away. And it does create environmental hazards and all kinds of things, but nobody ever talks about the fact that there is a different choice, and that
Mhm.
is, regeneratively raised animal foods, where the animals are raised in an environment that's their natural environment. They're
Mhm.
treated well, they're healthy, they live out their life in, in a,
Mhm.
I'm not going to say, idealistic,
Yeah.
green grass and sunshine all day long. There are still hardships for them, but it is their natural life rather than being kept in a pen or kept in a barn or whatever. Um, and I think that's something that people try to hide, is that if you're concerned about animal welfare, there is a different option that you can consume animal foods, and it doesn't have to be meats. It can be eggs and dairy,
Mhm.
you know, in which the animals are not sacrificed and we're not eating animal flesh, but eggs and dairy from well-raised animals, that you can include some animal foods in your diet to optimize those nutrients. So what was your experience in you know, in kind of thinking about that different option for getting animal foods that you don't feel like you are mistreating animals by your diet?
Okay, so I think this is going to bring up a point of financial constraints because
Sure,
yeah,
absolutely.
I am blessed. I'm able to choose organic, grass-fed, regenerative. Have you heard of forced to nature meats?
Yep, yep,
Yeah,
yep. Force of
so
nature, yep. Mhm.
yes, I love them. If I can, I'll splurge. But obviously I would choose the best possibly sourced meats.
Mhm.
Eggs, cage-free, free range,
Mhm.
all
Mhm.
that. And I think that's where it comes down to. A lot of people would just rather not spend money on that.
Mhm.
And another thing about the vegan diet is um the point that vegans like to make is that it's better for the environment, and because cows methane whatever
Mhm. Mhm.
I and to me it's a little bit backwards because if to eat all the plant foods that vegans eat daily, which consists of a lot of fruits, vegetables that are out of season and shipped from other parts of the world, I don't think that's exactly making a great environmental impact either. Like you said, we live in a society that allows us to be vegan and not starve to death. But if we
Mhm.
were living as close to nature as possible, we wouldn't have access to any of those foods. I mean, avocado toast is huge, but we don't I don't even have avocados where I live here. So
Right.
I think there's that aspect too that I think isn't talked about enough. And then as for the meats or the animal foods that are not like eggs, dairy, um, I would I feel as if they don't have enough emphasis. I mean, there's eggs that I was gonna say the vegan form of meats and the vegan egg, they they take just as much as they it's highly emphasized that they can contribute the same amount or the same like a replacement, like an equal replacement. And I don't think
Mhm.
that's true because both they use probably more energy to create and to they're just they're just straight chemicals. And
Yeah.
I think it would be I don't think we're doing it would be foolish to say that it resembles that of the real thing. And
Mhm.
um yeah, just
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I mean, you know, uh we talk here at NTI, and certainly other people talk about, you know, a whole foods diet and as little processed foods as possible. But if
Mhm.
you look at those foods that are plant-based substitutes for animal foods, you look at the ingredient list, and there
Mhm.
are many, many things on the ingredient list. They are highly
Mhm. Oh,
processed.
yes.
They require a massive input of a lot of ingredients, where, you know, eggs from chickens, it's eggs, right?
Yeah.
That's the
That
ingredient
is
list. It's
yeah.
eggs. But you know, to use eggs as an example. So they are highly processed. And so once again, you know, I know that you're with me on this. We are not trying to in any way diminish people's choices or whatever, but I am a firm believer that whatever choice we make, we need to make an educated decision. We need to be informed about that
Yeah,
decision, and we need to do a lot of research,
absolutely.
assessing pros and cons. You got to get a list, you got to write down, you know, what you're looking for, what your expectations are, and then assess the realities of your choice, and then make a choice. And so my goal here at NTI is not to convert all vegans into animal food eating people. And that is certainly not an agenda or a goal that we have here at NTI. But because we teach from the standpoint of nutrient density, we don't teach a particular nutrition or dietary paradigm or pattern, with the exception of nutrient density. That's what we teach, nutrient density.
Yes.
And if you are truly going to live a life, eat a diet that is based on nutrient density, you need to understand that in order to get that nutrient density, you need to consume animal foods or supplements to replace those nutrients. So, we've already talked about that, but so I appreciate that as you started your education here and started interacting with our curriculum, you recognized that there were nutrients, and you were open-minded enough, self-aware enough to recognize that, oh, these nutrients are, deficiencies of these nutrients are associated with these kinds of symptoms, and these are the symptoms that I'm having. And you were open-minded enough to say, all right, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to try it on myself and see if I feel better. And if I do, great. If I don't, all right. It was just an experiment, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Um, so, you know, I'm sorry. Now I'm doing a lot of the talking, and this is certainly an interview for you. But do you have any advice from your perspective for someone who's on this journey of trying to decide what is the best? We'll use the word diet, but really eating plan for themselves.
Let's see. I'm trying to think of what I would have needed to hear. Um, I think just, yeah, like you said, do your own research. Informed consent is number one. And don't I my age loves to take advice from social media, which is, you know, huge, and it's amazing, connects people. I've learned so much from it that I wouldn't have learned from medical practitioners. Um, but I think, yeah, to do your own research and really understand that the whole food itself is going to be 10 times better than whatever supplement you can get,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a whole food form of B12 or anything. It's best coming from the food. And if it's someone that struggles with digestive issues, it's you have to look at the root, and changing your diet isn't going to fix your digestive issues, which I assumed it would have because meat was heavy in my stomach, but it was really more of the digestive process itself. And um hydrochloric acid, stomach acid was just not where it needed to be, and that's of course why what makes digesting meat so difficult. And just I yeah, keep an open mind. I like to I like to know that if I'm presented with the facts, I'm going to not not have a not go against it, but see if okay, let's try to implement this, because if the I um we should have at least some room for we always have room for improvement, whether that's diet or your beliefs or anything. So I think it's just good to know different perspectives, and always like don't I think a lot of diets now, or a lot of people nowadays, want to make it seem like diets are like one and one only. If you don't stick to it, then
Yes,
you're not
yes.
practicing what you preach. And but we can change as we evolve, as we grow, as we
Mhm.
learn more. We can change our our beliefs about that. And I think I had to do that. And a lot of people questioned me, and my friends were like, "Oh, Gabia, but you were vegan, and what happened? You talked about how much you love animals, and I still love animals, but I know
Mhm.
that that this is how I feel better." And I tried to um yeah, just
Mhm.
explain in a way that doesn't put down a diet that I loved so much before, but
Mhm.
also the different perspective of how eating animal foods, animals can benefited
Mhm.
me without, of course, without really trying to make it seem like I'm above someone else. Just more
Yes.
open-minded. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's cool.
absolutely.
Mm.
And let's be clear, when you're consuming animal foods, it doesn't mean that you can't also have plant foods as part of your diet.
Yes, yes, of course.
Lots of vegetables,
Oh,
I
I
eat
love vegetable.
yeah, lots of fruits.
Yes.
So there are still an abundance of plant foods in my diet. So,
Yes.
in no way, does the inclusion of animal foods mean that there isn't also
Yes.
an abundance of
Yeah.
plant foods. So, all right, good. Well, thank you for that advice, and thank you for your acknowledgement that this is a decision that you made for yourself, and same thing with me. And we are in no way here saying that this is the diet for everyone. As you just said, there
Mhm.
isn't one diet or one eating plan that is right for every person, and every person throughout their life. I mean, throughout people's lives, throughout all of our lives, things need to change to adjust with the different phases of life that we're going through. And so there's always it's always a process.
Yes.
um
It really is.
as you said. So yeah, thank you. All right, so so as I mentioned, you're pretty far through our program. You're kind of getting down to the last handful of courses that you need to take to be done. So what kind of future goals do you have for yourself after you graduate and get your certification?
Ooh, I would love to start my own practice, I think.
Mhm.
That's a big goal for most graduates. I've uh I've started a passion project, a hobby on Instagram, just posting my love for health and wellness and little tips here and there. And I really started to get more into it within the last year as and I followed NTI and I started mentioning them, and that's how I got on here. But
Uh-huh. Yeah.
so just really it turned into something beautiful, and I got to connect with a lot of like-minded people, and it just reiterated my strong feelings towards health and wellness and wanting to help other people and just share. And I think I'm going to try to make something of it when I graduate here. Try to have my own business, have my own practice, because of I've been receiving already people that would be would love to work with me, and I'm like, okay, just a little bit
Mm-hmm.
longer, please. Let me
Mm-hmm.
finish my studies and get
Mm-hmm.
through what I need to get through to get there. And I'm really excited. I would yeah, I have yet to take the business course, I think. So I'm I hope I learn a lot from that, which
Mm-hmm.
I've been learning so much, so it
Sure.
doesn't disappoint by any means. So yeah, just dreaming little by little and getting closer to it feels really, really nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Social media has been huge, so I think I'm gonna utilize that. Obviously word of mouth, but it's amazing how we have access to it today and how many people we can connect to and help and just exchange with. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And um, you know, so many people before they start school, one of the biggest questions they have is, well, how can I actually use this? What am I going to do with this education once I graduate? And how do I? And then once they get into it, they're like, okay, so how do I start? Um, uh, how do I even start thinking about what my future practice can be like? And,
mhm.
I think once again, you are an example of, you're not waiting until after you graduate to start at least build a following of people,
Yeah.
whether it's online or in your friend group and through
Mhm.
referrals and that kind of stuff. And it is not uncommon also, once people find out that you're in nutrition school
Mhm.
and they recognize that you're committed to getting this education, they start asking questions because because it's kind of a little hidden truth that a lot of people don't know how to eat well, and they don't know how to make good food choices. And they sort of recognize that. And when they, stumble upon someone, or they meet someone, or they realize their friend or their relative is going to school for this, and they're like, oh, I've got someone I can actually kind of, ask, like, hey, by the way, you know,
Oh, yes.
I want to do this. How should I eat? Or, what kind of dietary changes should I have? So you are already building that momentum for the ability to have a client base once you graduate, and that's awesome. So
Yeah.
yeah, so you're doing
Yeah.
good. All right. Well, anything else you'd like to add to kind of round out the conversation, or do you feel like you said everything you wanted to say?
Trying to see. I always say that everybody knows their body best, and obviously that's hard to sometimes really feel when a lot of people have been out of touch with their body through just diet and just not really picking up on stuff. So of course it's gonna be difficult to know your body best when you don't have that intuition. But I think we can always come back to that, and we come back to that through really going down to the basics. I think NTI is a perfect example of teaching that it comes down to sleep, stress, nutrient dense whole foods, community, purpose, and just the foundations are what's gonna make you feel at least better than you were before. So if you could start there, then you're already like 10 steps ahead. And back to knowing what makes you feel good, knowing your body, and um that nobody can tell you what's best for you, because you will eventually get to know your body so well that it will be you who will decide ultimately that this is right for me, this is not right for me, or I'll try this and see for myself. So it's always you. And
I love that. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
You are the decider for what works
yes,
best for you. So yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
yeah.
Good. Well, Gabia, thank you so much for taking the time today. It was fun talking to you and getting your insights and kind of following your journey. It was a great story. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. It
Mhm.
was fun.
Alrighty. Bye-bye, everyone. Hi, Diane Kaler here again. If you found this conversation interesting and haven't already become a student at NTI, check us out at ntischool.com. We hope to see you soon.